Hello, hello, and welcome to our Monday addiction recovery and addiction recovery capital Hope, capital HOPE, all of them capitalized because we're trying to. You can share it now, Lex.
Where?
It'll pop up.
Okay.
And then so we're and hope. We're trying to. That's our biggest thing. We want to bring hope to people and resources. And so I'm here with lovely wifey. She's joining us because. Our good friend agreed to come on the radio, and we're so grateful that she did. Alexis Grath is with us. Say hello, Alexis.
Hi, guys.
All right, good enough. And so she's going to talk to us about, she's been going around to schools, and high schools mostly, and opening up communications. I know her past, and maybe she'll tell us a little bit about it, but we're not going to open any doors that she don't. But I know she struggled with depression and anxieties, and still has some issues with anxieties, but guess who else does? This guy, Heston. He struggles, and so it's good to talk about it. We're open on communication, and that's what she's trying to do with people, is touch subjects that people don't like to touch, and that some people don't think that are real. And so we're going to go through it a little bit. So we're going to turn the time over to Lex. She's going to ask us questions, the wifey and I, and she's going to go through her presentation, and maybe she'll give us a little bit about herself. Hi, Lex.
Hi.
It's all you.
Okay, guys, I'm a little bit nervous. So yes, I have been going to high schools the last couple of weeks and just going through and been talking about things that make us uncomfortable and whatnot. But before that, I am a graduate from Pineview High School from 2014. So yes, I'm 22 years old. I am a mom and a wife. I've got 2 little boys. And I just finished my bachelor's degree of psychology this last December. So I guess almost a year ago from Dixie. So but other than that, I've just been a stay-at-home mom and just kind of starting this page.
You can't say just.
I know. That's what your wife said. And it's true. You can't just say that because there's just so much to being a mom.
I would much rather work.
Yeah, it's true. There's some days that I'm like, my husband's like, I'm working so that you can be home with the kids. And I'm like, how about we trade off for a couple days and you can go to work and then I can go to work.
Fair enough. You'll figure out what works for you.
Okay, so Heston, I'm just going to go ahead and start with my presentation right here.
Okay.
What are some uncomfortable topics that you can think about?
Well, we already said this is sex.
Yeah, sex is always the one that gets whispered in the back that I'm like, yes, someone said it.
Yeah, it's always like, or pornography or anxieties and fears, like you say. What, you, babe? What?
Yes.
You're not uncomfortable. Talk about it. You dork around with that stuff all the time.
I don't think. Yeah, I talk about everything.
What are some uncomfortable situations for you guys? Like just in your day-to-day lives?
Oh my gosh! For me, opening the front door.
Yeah.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
The other day, someone came to the door, and my 2-year-old, usually they knock, and I just shh, and he did the same thing. Someone knocked, and he's like shh, and I'm like, he's definitely my son.
He's learning.
So let's see here. I usually go through and ask the kids all these kinds of questions, just like funny things that just people in general experience, like just anxiety in general, like how many people experience like being anxious for an event or an assignment or whatever, or how many of you guys like stress, sweat, and stuff. And so people they answer, and at first they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's asking these questions. But then it's like everyone in the class is raising their hands, and it just turns really like comfortable really fast, and the whole class just becomes like super close.
Yeah, and that's what I found with the high school kids and that age. Once you open up and let them know that you've struggled, they open up.
Yes.
If you don't open up, they're going to have that wall up.
Yeah, it was just incredible to see from the beginning. Like when I first started, everyone was kind of quiet and timid. And as I got through it, like at the end, everyone's asking questions about like my marriage and just funny things, like just getting to know me. And it was like just the comfort in the room that it was so different from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
Why do you guys think communication is so important?
Oh, ding, 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 ding.
Ask her.
I like to communicate.
I'm a good communicator.
Are you?
No.
No.
What do you think the difference is between real and superficial conversation?
Well, real is when you leave the conversation feeling complete, like feeling that you've solved something.
Okay.
Superficial, you say?
Yes.
Is like when she looks at me and says, what would happen if you were married to so and so in 20 years, and then I mean, like some crazy story. Is that all right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
she does that all the time, and I'm like, well, that ain't even real.
How would you define superficial?
Like, I think she's just trying to talk.
Okay.
I tell her my word count is up.
Okay, just to fill the space. I talked about like superficial was like on the surface. Like you come in contact with somebody and you're like, "Hi, how are you?" Like nice weather. It's just to fill the space so there's not that
Yeah.
that awkwardness, you know. And for me, it's super important to have the open communication. I didn't really have that when I first got married, and I slowly have been learning how to communicate, and it's just been so much better than just pushing everything under the rug and just pretending like things just don't happen.
Yeah.
And then
I feel like you're talking directly to my wife and I.
Oh, good.
Because I'm horrible, and it was part of my addictions. Is why I used is because I did not communicate well
Yes.
unless I felt like I was like that's what I had to do to feel normal, because is my fears of opening up. I don't like it.
Yes. And like I asked a lot of the kids, like if you guys had kids your age, like would you want them to come to you with problems like with sex or drugs or whatever it is? And they're like, yeah. It's like, well, how are you going to create those relationships? Like what kind of qualities do you need to have for them to be able to come to you?
Yeah. And I guess
So-
you need to talk about it.
Yeah. So
the way
what
you
kind
do
of
it.
qualities do you guys think?
Like we do. We talk to
Yeah.
our kids about each one of them. Each subject: drugs, pornography, how you have babies and stuff like that. Gets a little weird.
Babies.
And they both just like Caleb's actually he's not too shy, but Riker, oh boy, put him in and he's like, ew.
Yeah.
That's funny. So I just talked to him and I'm like, you need to have like open communication, like trust. You need to be able to like share things that happen in your own life.
And
You
not
can't just-
react or overreact.
Okay, yeah, I guess. Yes, absolutely. They were saying like you don't want to go to somebody and get in trouble for what you already know you're doing wrong, you know.
Yeah.
If you're asking for help, you clearly know that you need it and it's not something that you should be like getting in trouble for.
Sure.
Let's see here. So, how do you guys think you know when you need help?
Oof.
Well, I knew when I needed help was when my life was unmanageable.
Now, knowing when you need help and asking for help, that's the key.
Yes. Oh, yes.
That's a tricky one. Because, I knew when I needed help, but asking for help, well, that took a long time.
So, why do you think it is so different? It varies so much.
I think pride.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think as a society, those subjects are we've always said, don't tell so and so that he struggles with alcohol, that our son struggles, or our daughter struggles, or we struggle.
Yes,
Don't
yes,
tell anyone. It's our secret, and that's a problem when you keep secrets. Secrets are just that,
Yes.
right?
Oh yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
think.
So let's see. Talk about
Are
mental.
we getting graded on this?
I don't know. Why?
Are you giving us an A or a B?
Sure.
later?
if you want. Let's see. Let's talk about my experience. So then I asked the kids, like, how do you guys know what a mental illness is? And some of them do, some of them don't. Just a health condition that causes distress or problems functioning in daily life. And so here's where I talk about my experience. And it started in 4th grade. My parents switched me from public to private school. And we had a test coming up, and my cousins had come into town, and I'm 10 years old, okay? So, like, I don't want to study for a test, right? So I lay in bed, and I, like, study for, like, just a few minutes, and then take the test the next day. Did absolutely horrible, and immediately was just, like, sick to my stomach. And my teacher's like, this is the score you got, and these are the grades and whatever. And I was just like, oh, my gosh, like, I just missed the very most that you could miss, you know? So I'm like, I raised my hand. I'm like, can I go to the bathroom? And she's like, yeah, go to the bathroom. And I just laid on the tile floor and just sobbed my eyes out. Like, I was so sick. I was just leaning over the toilet. I just felt like I was going to throw up, and I just felt miserable. So they called my mom, and they had her, they didn't have her. She took me to Instacare because I was complaining about this stomach ache that I was having, and I was just felt awful. And they did some tests, and everything was fine. And so for the next, like, couple weeks after that, every single day I'd wake up in the morning with a stomach ache before school because I was just so nervous. But at this time, I didn't know what it was. So every morning it was like, I can't go to school today. Like, I'm nervous. Every time I got around to the same subject that we had the test on, I would get nervous and I'd have to go to the office and get Tums. And now I absolutely hate Tums. And so then, like, as I got older, like, through middle school and stuff, it was just the same thing. Like, just always had that stomach ache, woke up with it every morning, and then eventually it turned into headaches and body aches. And I was constantly taking ibuprofen every single day because I always had headaches. And so in 9th grade, we went and got an MRI, and there wasn't anything wrong there either. So I was like, you know what, maybe this is just how life is, and everyone else just goes on with it and just doesn't say anything.
Yeah, right?
And so I got through high school and graduated, and in my first semester of college, I was in a psychology class, and he was talking about mental illness and like disorders and stuff. He was going over anxiety and depression. He was going over like sweating and constant, just that constant like overwhelming, just being like,
making up things that don't ever happen.
Yes.
That you go down 1,000 roads.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm there.
And I just remember sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, like after all these years, it's been 8 years at this point. And it's like, I'd gone to doctors and doctors never said like, oh, maybe it might be this or try like mental health. There was nothing. And so it was like, it took me this long for me, like just going to school, being a college student, to figure out what I had. And so after that, I like came home and I talked to my husband. And I'm like, I have anxiety. This is what's going on. And at that time, I'd started a different job and I didn't have a whole lot of training and I was super overwhelmed. And at that time, my anxiety just got really horrible and my depression kicked in. And I didn't want to get on medication because I was like, you know, I don't want to be weak. I don't need to be on medication.
Yeah.
Like, I can get over this, I can get through this. So every morning I'd wake up and I'd read my scriptures and I'd listen to talks and inspirational and motivational speakers, and I was just filling my life with all positive things, which I think is a tremendous thing to do. Like,
it is.
It's never bad
but it's
to
not,
do.
It's not always easy for people that struggle.
Yes, and it's not always the answer. Like, I feel like in like my own personal life, it was always like, make sure you're reading your scriptures and saying your prayers and stuff, and it's like, you can do those things, but sometimes you just need that extra help. And I absolutely believe that medication is here for a reason. And so I finally got medication, and I have been on it for the last couple of years. And it's just something that I need to bring that boost up for me, because I just get so down and depressed, and it really affects my relationships with my family and my kids. And it makes life easier. It doesn't take away the anxiety, but it just makes it a lot more manageable.
Yeah.
Let's see.
You know what I'm hearing in a lot of it is what I'm thinking as you're talking is you are so amazing to not have went to drugs, like the drugs that I use.
Yeah.
You know, pills, cocaine, whatever, heroin, whatever. That most people, or a lot of people, end up doing that out of being depressed and anxiety because they can't. It's not a good feeling. You know, it's and you want to run from that feeling.
So I even asked the kids after that, like, what are some good and bad coping strategies? And that's when a lot of kids will say drugs, and there's like self-harm, and there's like good things like running and exercising and whatnot. But I always make sure to come back to the drugs, because I don't think people understand that people don't just turn to drugs just for the heck of it. It's not something that's fun that all of a sudden is just like, oh, I'm just going to do drugs. Yeah,
I tell people that all the time. Well, it's a choice. Yeah. A little bit different, though. I don't think one person ever in this world said, I want to be a drug addict when I grow up.
No, absolutely not. And I just think I always tell them, like, you guys have to have so much compassion, because you don't know what's going on at home. You don't know if there's parents. You don't know if they're being abused or whatever's going on behind closed doors. They're doing these things to cope with something. And although it's not a good coping strategy, they aren't communicating about it. There's something else behind that. It's not just the drugs. My grandpa was addicted to alcohol, and he smoked from like 16 on, and he passed away a couple of years ago. But like, as a family, we always just looked at him and just thought like, oh, he's just a drunk, you know. He was always drunk, and that's just how we saw him. And like, now that I'm older and I understand that people turn to these things as a way to cope, it was like, I wonder what would have been different if he had gotten help, if he had realized that he had depression or anxiety. And so I just talk about that with the kids, and you just never know. You never know what's going on and why they're doing the drugs and stuff they are, because our world is so hard, and all of us struggle, and we all struggle differently, and we all have different ways of coping with that.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's see. So, who are some people that you guys look up to and why?
I know I look up to you because you're taller.
Yeah.
I'm the one that said the short joke this time.
Oh my gosh.
Oh goodness, yes. Gosh.
I know you look up to your mama.
Yes, I look up to my mom. I look up to my dad. I look up to my stepmom. I look up to my grandparents. I look up to my popo, which is up in heaven, and I can't talk about him or I'll start crying.
She'll cry.
Yeah, there's so many people I look up to. There's a list. I mean, the list is so long.
You know who I look up to?
Your wife.
Is the people. Well,
Yes,
I already did
all
that.
the time.
But it's the people that, and I know everyone knows my religion and what way I believe, and I'm open to whatever. I don't judge anyone for believing the way they do.
Absolutely.
But I look up to the people that have stayed strong to their beliefs from day one and never strayed, and those are the people that I look up to. And a lot of them say, "I look up to you for going what you went through," but I look up to them actually.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
And my sister and my brother.
Yeah, family.
Okay,
Family.
why do you look up to some of those people? Like, what are some examples? Why?
Well, I mean, especially like my brother, for all him, like especially my brother and his wife at the time that when I went through my recovery, they brought me up to Alaska when they had faith in me, and they just took me up when I went through the
When
last,
no one else would take
Yeah.
would take you in, they did.
yeah, like when everyone else gave up hope,
Yeah.
they took me in. Yeah.
So then I talk to the kids, and I'm always like, the people you look up to the most have always been through the worst things.
Yeah.
It's not ever somebody that's just had like the easiest life, and they just say, "Hey, this is what you need to do," and this is what I did, and life's just easy. It's always, you always look up to somebody that's gone through heck and back,
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, I agree to that.
And I just think a lot of times people end up taking their lives before it can get to that good part,
Yeah.
I think you have to experience the good and the bad in life, because without both, you wouldn't be able to understand what each of them were. Sure. And I think a lot of times people who get depressed and whatnot, they're in such a low spot and they think, you know what, I can't do this anymore. But if they just keep holding on, eventually they'll get to that good part in life. And I think it's so important.
If we can love them through it.
Yes, absolutely.
It's so hard. I have a daughter that struggles, and it's really hard because I can't really love her through it because we don't communicate.
Yeah.
And there's no way to safely. So it's a different circumstance, but I think we have to be there.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
not judge them, like you said.
Yes. So then the kids always ask me like why I started my Instagram page. So yes, I have an
What
Instagram
is your
page.
Instagram page?
It's called Make the Uncomfortable Comfortable.
That's
it's
right.
on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
And it's been going for about a year.
I like both of them.
Oh,
I'm a member of both of them.
Oh, good. That's at least one person. Originally, I started it just with like mental health. It was like I struggled with this for 8 years and nobody knew how to help me. So there's got to be somebody else that can benefit from me having this page. And so I really just started out with like just kind of like memes and just like personal experiences from my own life that had to do with like anxiety and depression, just like funny things that other people with anxiety and depression would understand because they have it too.
Yeah.
And just in the last couple of months, I'm like, it's really more than that. It's more than mental health. Like it's just about everything in our society that just is so deemed uncomfortable. Like addiction in general is just like people constantly want to just blame the addicts, and no one ever wants to fix problems. Like it's always there's just a blame. And so I look at that and it's like, like the communication side of everything, there's sex, there's mental health, there's so much in our society that we try to pretend like isn't there, but it's causing so much like distress in our world because we look at it as such a secret thing.
Yeah.
And so it's just really important to me that it becomes something that's more talked about, because as it's more talked about, it's easier for people to talk about, and it'll just be one of those things that just comes up and nobody will have to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they just said that.
Yeah.
And in our world, everyone is so opinionated, and I think everyone always wants to be right. And I don't think that's really what it's about. I think everyone can have their own opinions, and we don't need to jump down anybody's throat and say, you know what, this is why I'm right or this is why you're wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that's what that's why all these topics are just so uncomfortable, because people think they have to end with who's right or wrong, and I just don't think that's
and the thing is, they just don't understand because they haven't been there.
Yes.
And so but this is what I've been thinking the whole time you've been talking for the last minute is, you know what? That's what I admire about you, Lex, is that you have a story, and you're helping people. You could tell your story to 1,000 people, and maybe only 9 of them even want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
But you're willing to tell it, and those 9 people are the ones you're helping.
Yes.
And I'm the same way. I know everyone around me is like, oh, there's the idiot talking about addiction, and he got up to the pulpit again about that stupid thing. He's got up there 100 times, and I'm thinking, I don't care about you guys. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to that one that's struggling.
Yes.
I'm talking to the one that I can help because I've been there.
Yes.
And maybe that person that's not wanting to hear me can talk to him about some problem they've been through. And I might not like their subject, but I think we all need to be tolerant of what we're trying to accomplish, and which is helping people.
Yes. Oh, I love that. That's how I felt. So originally I started at Pineview, and I did their classes for 2 days, I think. And their classes went really well. Like, I left and I felt like I'm a rock star, like these kids, like they wanted to know who I was. Like they were really impressed by me. And then I ended up going to Snow Canyon the next week, and it was just not the same. I didn't get the same vibe, the same reactions. Like, I left and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm talking to my husband, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this again tomorrow. Like, it was just really bad today. And he's like, you could just cancel it. And I'm like, yeah, I could. But then I just kept thinking about, well, what about those people that I can touch? Even though there might be some that are thinking, oh my gosh, this is so boring.
That's it.
There's those at least a handful. And so I went and did the rest of the Snow Canyon ones, and I had at least 2 people from every class message me on Instagram and say, I'm so glad you came to our school. Like, I was in one of the quieter classes or whatever, but I really appreciated it. Like, this is something I've been going through. And so even though I just thought oh my gosh, this is just horrible, there still was a ton of people that were they just loved that I was so real and open, and they just felt comfortable enough to express to me, I'm glad that you were there.
Yeah. That's what it's all about.
Yes. And then I always talk to the kids about talents and what are some talents that you guys have?
Wifey's a good cook.
Oh,
Cooks almost every night, even if it is Spam sometimes.
I'm good with the can opener.
She's
oh my gosh, you guys.
She's also good with the children.
Okay.
Better than me. She has a friendship with each one of them different. But then I'm more of the, I don't know. She's good at momming.
Okay.
Mommying.
She's got other talents. She's very frugal. She goes to the DI and is there for 4 hours and spends $3. She spends 3 hours in 4 hours. I'm like $3. I'm like, she's like, I'm gonna go to the DI and chase around the new carts they bring out and
oh my gosh,
be the first one to see the new stuff.
Yes.
I'm like, go do it. You know what? Go do it because you're not out spending $300.
Right. Yes.
Husband's good at doing laundry.
I do every bit of laundry.
He's really good at doing laundry.
Gosh.
He's really good at vacuuming.
Yeah.
Look at you guys
he's good
splitting
at
up
doing
house chores.
He
I
is
just
good
don't
at
touch
house
the kitchen.
chores. He don't do the dishes, but he does make the bed.
Wow.
Amazing.
Every day.
At making the bed.
That's pretty incredible.
Yes.
Yeah, that's our talents.
I'm lucky.
Though. We don't have talents we're not good at anything like
when you think of talent show.
Yeah.
That's what I always ask the kids.
I suck at golf and pickleball and anything I try to do, but I'm pretty good at vacuuming.
That's funny. So what about qualities that you might have that you don't think of as talents?
Qualities. I think I'm good with I can adapt with people.
Okay.
Yeah. You know what her best quality is to me?
What?
Is that she loves old people.
Yeah.
She loves
Why is that
people
good for you?
60. No, I admire it.
Okay.
Because that's all she wants to do is be around old people.
Okay.
And she has a soft heart for them. She will talk to them for 20 hours. She goes to work and cuts old people's hair. She was going to do it for free, but she gets paid a little bit. But she was going to do this for volunteer service. And she goes to work, sometimes she's there from 8:30 in the morning till 9 at night. And it's she says, I don't even feel like I work because she loves old people.
That's so awesome.
I love it.
I really admire that because I have a really hard time personally. I have patience for little kids, but for some reason I have zero patience with older people.
Give me the old people.
Yeah.
So I look at some other talents as like compassion and loving, being understanding, being a peacemaker, good at communicating, like people who are really good at empathizing and supporting and telling the truth.
Yeah, I like that.
And a lot of the kids are like, yeah, you're right. Those are some qualities. And those kind of go back to the beginning when I asked, like, what are some qualities you want to have as a parent? That kind of goes back into that. And like, I think we all personally have our own weaknesses and our own strengths. And I think that Satan knows what's going to get us, and he knows what we can do in this life. And if he can get us to commit suicide or be depressed or fall to substances or whatever it is, he knows that we won't reach that potential. But I know that if we make it through that there's so many lives that we'll touch, and there's so much good we can do in the world. But we just have to keep going through those hardships. It's just something that makes us who we are, and it makes us grow, so that one day we can look back and say, like, look how far I've come. And well, I don't know where I was going
100%.
with that.
100%. I agree with you. I tell you what, Lex, I don't tell many people, but I was at one point, along with addictions to drugs and alcohol, I was diagnosed with bipolar, and I was prescribed an antipsychotic. I was pretty messed up, which I think my daughter has a little bit of. But I was on about 5 medications at the same time, with Xanax, Klonopin, and all the antipsychotics and the other stuff. And now I'm on nothing. I'm on life. Yeah. You're on life. So you get past it. No, it's my point is that you bear that, and it's so hard. I mean, it's tough, and a lot of people can't do it. And I'm not to judge anything, man. I just am here if any one of them wants to talk and let them know that there's hope, and it might be 10 years, but you'll get past it.
Yeah.
You will.
So the last thing I always end with is just how do you gain confidence?
By doing it.
Yes.
And when you're shaking in your boots, and then you just do it anyway, and you fail, and then you're shaking in your boots, and you do it again, and you do it again, and you'll get better at it.
Yes. I had some people say, you fake it till you make it. And I'm like,
good one.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know if you can really fake your confidence, and eventually it'll just make you confident, because in high school I had no confidence. I was very, on the outside it looked like I did, the inside I had none.
Because you were faking it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
and
it worked.
I don't think so. I don't think
yes,
you ever
it did.
No, I don't think so. And so I talk about how last year I went to a Christmas party with my husband, and we were eating dinner, and they had like sliced bread in front of us, okay? So I went to grab a piece of bread, and like it wasn't cut through all the way, so the bread stuck to like the bottom of the loaf, which isn't a big deal, but in my head I was like, oh my gosh, and I look at my husband and I'm like, stress, help! And he's just laughing, and he just cuts the bread, But it was at that moment that I realized, like, why does it matter? Like, we always are so, like, we hold ourselves back because we're worried about what other people think.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment that I was like, I said that out loud, and like, I don't know if anyone at the table even recognized what had happened, But it was after that I was like, I can say what I mean, or I can say, like, if I'm stressed or whatever's going on, and it gives me a little bit of that relief. Like, think about, like, when you go in to, like, a test or something, and you're like, man, I'm super nervous. Well, if you're talking to somebody next to you and they're nervous too, it kind of gives you, like, that ease of, like, oh, good, someone else is feeling the same way that I do. There's just that little bit of, like, compassion almost, just because someone else knows what you're going through.
Lex, you just need to come walk a day in my shoes, and you'll be just fine.
Oh, dear.
I'm reminded when you say that about one of the favorite things that I was told is a good quote. I don't even know if it's a quote or just something that was real, and it's real to me.
Okay.
And it's what other people think of me is none of my business.
Yes.
I don't care. I just got to do the best I can. Where I mess up, I need to make my amends, and what other people think of me is none of my business.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, we got to wrap it up.
Okay.
You got 30 seconds. What would you want to tell people? Talk about make the uncomfortable comfortable. What's your last parting word?
My last parting word is be who you want to be, because if you're trying to be anyone else's idea of perfect, you will never be happy. So you need to create what you want to be. You need to figure out your qualities that you want to have, and you need to go for it. You need to stop worrying about what your parents think and what your friends think and what your family thinks. Just be you, and the world will benefit from who you are.
Yes. I love it. I love your message. I love
Thanks.
that you're willing to put yourself out there And just so you know, I know for a fact that you're helping people, and you need to keep doing it, and no matter what obstacles you come against. And anyone out there looking for someone to follow Make the Uncomfortable Comfortable. And Alexis Graff, and I'm Heston Cherry, and we look forward to another show next Monday, and have a great week.